Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great. How you doing, Eric?
Doing fantastic. We're coming up. We've got little winter weather here this week in New England. And of course, across the country, we've had some massive storms, most of which just missed us.
Yeah, today we're getting all the wind, but without any of the precipitation. So
Yeah, and around the country, they got a lot of rain and a lot of snow from this one, so we lucked out.
yeah, this was all the way back in Arizona and Southwest and stuff that don't normally get this kind of thing.
So yeah, we've been pretty lucky this winter. We're coming up on some more winter weather, but we're almost through.
It's almost March.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about something that's very important both for a business and an individual, and actually for governments as well. And it's living within your means. Now, I heard a great saying the other day. It was the rich stay rich by acting poor, and the poor stay poor by acting rich.
That is quite a saying.
It is. And it's very apropos to, the fact of the matter is, if you live within your means, you can be more successful because you're not worried about the bills. You're not worried about making ends meet. And I mean, it's not as easy as we're making it sound, but there's a lot of things you can do to make sure you are living within your means and that you're not, overextending yourself. And I think one of the first steps that anybody can take is to take a serious inventory of what you are spending. Put together what your budget is. How much are you spending on food, on utilities, on going out, on television, on movies, whatever it is you're spending money on? Put together a budget, because unless you know what you're spending, you can't figure out how to spend less.
Yeah, and a good way to track all this stuff is somehow use a program electronically. There's software out there that can do this for you, or if you just wanted to do your check register in Microsoft Excel and just have a column for the different types of expenses you have and put that in there, you can automatically total those things up. But it's really, really important, not only to get a handle on what you're spending, but sit down and take a look at what you're making and what you are expecting to make also, because the bottom line is you got to make sure that you're not spending more than you make.
Right. And that starts with this budget, is figuring out exactly what you're spending. And then once you have that, you can see, well, where are you spending more than you really need to? A few years ago, in my family, we took a look at, we had for a television provider, DirecTV. And we were taking a good look at our DirecTV bill, and we were absolutely aggravated. And we figured out that we were paying this $186 bill, but we only watched 15 channels of the 200 we had. So we looked at where we could cut costs on that. Now, the first thing you can do is actually call the provider and find out if you can get a better deal. Sometimes they'll cut you a better deal. Sometimes they'll figure something out. In this particular case, DirecTV was unwilling to cut us a deal. And the problem was the channels that we did watch were all on their higher tiers. So we had to pay for a whole lot of things we never used in order to get the things we did. So we canceled the service and we went to over the top providers. Now, over the top providers, for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, these are TV providers that stream over the internet. So we got Netflix, we got Hulu, we had Amazon Prime, we got Sling for live TV, and all of those combined cost less than half of what DirecTV was costing us. And it gave us more things we actually watched. So you need to take a look at what you're spending and what you're actually using when you spend that.
Yeah, you make a really good point there. It's once you analyze what you're looking at, you definitely have to look at what you were just talking about is trimming the fat and basically distinguishing between what you want and what you need. So if you can take a look at different things such as food, this, that, and whatever things that you definitely are going to have versus things that are more luxury items and you're coming closer to the edge as far as what you're making, that's a great place to start. We've also talked in the past, one of the things you have to make sure that you're doing is paying yourself first, putting some money away for savings and for shortages and so on and so forth, because life is not going to run smooth all the time and you have to build up something on the side to cover that.
Absolutely. We talked a lot about paying yourself first when we talked about the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's one of the key lessons in that book. And it's very important. When your paycheck comes in, whether you're self employed or you're working for someone else, you need to take a portion of that and put it into savings, investments, whatever it is you're going, wherever it is you're going to put it, an emergency fund. We had a situation a number of years ago where we were hit with a massive blizzard, and the blizzard knocked out power all over the state. Well, not only did it knock out the power, it also knocked out power to ATMs. So we were unable to get money to buy what we needed. Wasn't that we didn't have it, but we had no access to it. So after that, I started taking $20 a week out of what I was saving and putting it aside in cash. And this was the emergency fund. This wasn't for investing. This was for just in case when we needed cash, like during that blizzard. Well, a few years later, we have another blizzard. This time the power goes out, but it comes right back. Well, the surge knocked out our refrigerator. Beyond help, it's dead. We now need to go get a new refrigerator. Well, I was able to look at the emergency fund and go, oh, guess what? We've got enough for the refrigerator, no problem. We went out, we bought it, we got it taken care of. You need to put money aside for emergencies like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you're starting to do a little bit better and you are coming up with a surplus every month, it's really, really important to budget that accordingly too. So if you want to have vacations and this and that, whatever, if you set those things up as a long-term goal thing, you put things aside and you don't do it automatically just because you have the money, it's really, really important to do that too. So you got to plan things out. It's also really, really important. You know, you talked about the TV, but there's other recurring expenses out there that you can take a look at also. And if you are a savvy shopper, there's always deals out there for you to look at because you can use the internet as your friend to research a whole bunch of different things. And one of the nice things you can do with that is, you know, if you're looking at repairs or this or that, you can pit one company against the other just by doing your research and save a whole lot of money doing things just by what we call shopping savvy.
Yes. And don't be afraid to pit companies against each other. Tell them quite frankly, look, I wouldn't mind using you, but this other company's giving the exact same service for less. See if you can get a deal from them. Very often you can get certain things. Um, Again, like I said with TV, but there's also your phone. There, if you still have a landline, look closely, if you really need it, or if you can just have your cell phone. Most of us have cell phones at this point. We had a landline for years, and the only reason we were keeping it is because there were a couple of elderly family members that had that number, and quite frankly, we didn't think they could learn a new number at this point. Well, what we were able to do is for $20 a month, we got a voice over IP phone system, transferred the old lines there, and when somebody called it, it forwarded right to our cell phones. So that dropped something like $80-$90 a month off of our budget because we were paying for something we didn't really need. And something else, like Chip, you mentioned food. You really need to take a look when you're buying food at how much you're buying and how much you're throwing out. I mean, if you're getting food at, say, a Costco or a Sam's Club, it may be a great buy, per item. But if you're not finishing them and you have to throw them out, you're better off getting smaller items at a supermarket. By the same token, you should pay attention to where you're shopping. Where I live, we've got two major supermarkets. We've got a Walmart that carries groceries, and we've got two smaller discount food stores, an Aldi and a Price Right. And we routinely shop every one of them, going, well, the price is better at Price Right this week, so we'll get there. We get certain things at each place that we know they have the best price on. And we save money that way. You always have to pay attention to what's around and not just go to the place you always go.
Yeah, and as we've said, the internet has all this information. I mean, if you go shopping at different places, you're probably getting weekly flyers from them as far as what they have. If you're still getting something called a newspaper, there's probably so there's a lot of things that you can do as far as looking at different ways to save money. But doing comparison shopping is a really, really important way to do that. So
and there are apps that will do it for you. If you're looking for a specific item, you put in the item in your zip code and it will tell you the best price around you. You can do that for groceries. You can do that for gas. You can do it for quite a number of items.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're looking online for stuff, obviously, all you got to do is go into Google Shopping, and it's going to compare a whole bunch of different things for you when you're shopping around for things. Also,
and sometimes you also need to take into consideration when you need this. If it's something you need right now, okay, you're going to run out and get it. But if it's something you're not going to need till next week, very often you can order it online. And if you don't need it for a week, you can get free shipping that usually takes 4 or 5 days. And you can save money that way.
one of the I'm sure a lot of you folks out there have heard of a financial planner. He has a show every week, or maybe even more often, and his name is Clark Howard. And he talks about, how to invest money and save and all that other kind of thing. So he had an article here saying 7 ways to start living within your means without feeling limited, which was pretty cool. And one of the things that got me is he has a habit of, instead of just writing down a budget that you have as far as what you're spending on, he budgets starting from zero, which means you have nothing. And what you're going to do is you're just going to start writing down what you need to spend on, starting with zero and building it up from there, which is going to make you pay a whole lot more attention to the different things that you're spending your money on. And he also talks, and this is right up yours and my alley too, about having a feeling of gratitude for all the different things that you can afford. So he talks about, your apartments, maybe being able to go out every
Yeah,
once in a while, dinner or
what you
whatever. But if
yeah,
you
what
start from zero, it's a really great way to look at things.
yeah, what you're talking about is called zero-based budgeting. And for for a person it's a great thing. It is phenomenal for a business, because most businesses, when they have to do an annual budget, they take last year's budget or last quarter's budget and they go, okay, this is the starting point. Well, I need to spend a little more here and I need to spend a little less here. But when you start everything at zero, it forces you to figure out exactly how much you have to spend. And personally, I have been a big proponent of zero-based budgeting, not just for businesses, but for governments, state, local governments, federal government. Zero-based budgeting is a fantastic tool. And unfortunately, most large organizations do not use it because it does take a little extra time. It's a little more work. But in terms of saving money, it's a phenomenal tool. So, what else did Clark Howard recommend?
Well, he also talked about being grateful for what you can afford. And obviously, another thing that you can do personally is to look how you can increase the amount of money that you're bringing in. So if you're at work and you're doing a good job, it could be asking for a raise, or obviously there's all different types of opportunities out there for you to do something on the side, have a side business like we've talked about before. So if things aren't working out the way you want them to, or if you want to start putting a little bit more away, it's never been an easier time to figure out ways to increase that top line for yourself.
Yeah, right now we are at a unique position where there are actually more jobs out there than there are people to fill them. So, this is a great time for you to look. If you're not making enough in your current job, look around, see if there's a job that you're qualified for that you can make more money. A side hustle. I always recommend people have a side hustle because you never know what's going to happen. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. Um, Regardless of what the job is. Here in Connecticut, there are folks that do call center work for AT&T. Well, yesterday they just found out that AT&T is moving these jobs to Georgia. So either they're going to have to move to Georgia to keep the job or find something else. Now, if they had a side hustle, it wouldn't be as big a deal because as they're looking for another job, they're still making money on their side hustle. So it's very important to have multiple streams of income. And virtually every book I have ever read on how to retire well, how to get rich, every one of them stresses multiple streams of income. It should be your day job, it should be a side job, it should be investment income. And you should always have as many different income streams as you can.
So one of the other things that Clark talks about is spreading out your splurges. And these could be like the modern conveniences that you have in your life. And instead of timing them monthly, you might want to go every 6 weeks or 8 weeks for this and that type of thing. Going out to dinner, and that, again, it all depends on where you are. But having the resources doesn't mean you need to spend them right away. And one of the best ways to keep things under control is to have those things budgeted time wise.
Yes, budget those things time wise. And also, you can split your money up. Very often people will have, a savings account and a checking account. But there's nothing that says you can't have multiple savings accounts. And now most banks will open an account with as little as, anywhere between 20 and $100. So you can have one account that's just for going out to eat, one account that's just for saving for a vacation, one account that's an investment account. And this way you don't touch the money that's earmarked for something specific. So what other advice did Clark have for us?
Actually, those are the 7 points that he had there was challenging the recurring expenses, which we talked about looking at your TV example, shopping savvy, which is comparing prices and so on, trimming the fat out of your budget. Uh, and then we just talked about the splurges. We talked about zero-based budgeting, practicing gratitude, and making more. He just had the 7 points there. Other things to look into, obviously, for your own personal well-being, is taking care of your health, maybe doing things yourself, project-wise, and so on and so forth, rather than spending money on getting things done. Even one point there, can't do it this time of year, but planting a garden instead of having to go shopping for vegetables and stuff like that too. So there's a lot of
Actually,
different
there
ways.
there are some fantastic indoor gardens where you can grow vegetables inside. If you have space in a basement or something like that, you can still have a garden even in the winter. And in fact, one of the things that I tell people that's a great way to save money is, if you don't know already, learn to cook. I learned to cook at a very early age. And between knowing what the prices are at all of my local markets and the ability to cook, I can serve my family of four a steak dinner with, side dish, vegetables, all the trimmings for less money than I can take them to McDonald's. So you're eating better, which lowers your health costs because you're eating healthier. You're saving money on the food. And quite frankly, you're eating better food. So, absolutely, if you don't already know how to cook, please learn to cook.
Yeah, and getting back to business a little bit, because I know we've been talking mostly about personal things.
Yep.
Out in the business world, there is a lot of opportunities out there because we have a lot more smaller business and solopreneurs who may be a little bit cash poor. However, by developing strategic partnerships to help each other out with business and so on and so forth, you may be able to kind of barter off services between each other to cover projects and keep things within line that way too. So never underestimate the relationships that you have out there. And if you can get together with some of your strategic partners and figure out the best way to help each other out in those different ways, you may be able to save some money that way too.
Absolutely. Working with other solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, you can save quite a bit of money. As you just mentioned, by bartering services back and forth, but also by sharing resources. If you want to get an office, but say you don't all need a full-time office. If 4 or 5 people go in on a single office, each one using it one day, you're cutting a lot off of the rent. A lot of the software we use nowadays is cloud-based software. So you can buy very often 5 licenses at a discount. And if you've got 5 different businesses going in with you, then those 5 people can all pay for one license, and that license can be cheaper than you're paying all by yourself to get the software. So there are a lot of advantages to working with other businesses. There's also membership groups, um, chambers of commerce. Um, we're actually working right now putting together a membership option for the Empower Business Connection. And a lot of these offer discounts. So when you pay your membership, you're not just getting the benefits of that membership. Maybe it's, the events that they put on or whatever it is. These programs give you discounts at Staples, discounts at restaurants, discounts at local businesses, for rental cars, hotels. So if these are things you use on a regular basis, these discount cards are a fantastic way to save money. And you can do it as a business or you can do it as an individual. And you really do need to look very closely at what you're using and whether or not you really need it. I mean, on the individual level, we talked about TV, we mentioned landlines, but your cell phone service. If you're a business person, look into using a business cell phone. A couple of years ago, we decided we wanted to trade in our cell phone service. We weren't thrilled with our provider. We looked at new providers. And when I went to T-Mobile, they asked me if I owned a business. And I said, yes. They said, well, if you do this through your business, it's actually cheaper. So we got the phones through my company and saved money there. And T-Mobile actually offers different apps that help me run the phones for the business. So there's different benefits if you're a solopreneur of getting services that you might think of as personal through your business. And of course, the other benefit of getting it through your business is that the business is paying the bills. So you take that off of your income, you're making less, but the cost comes out before you're paying taxes on the income. So it lowers your taxable income, which is a great way to cut your expenses in paying taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a solopreneur, the more that you can run through the business legitimately, the better off you're going to be as far as tax bills and getting discounts, just like you were saying.
Yes. And the keyword there is legitimately.
Yep.
All right, we're actually coming up on the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway our listeners should take this week?
Well, it all starts with a budget and maybe your zero-based budget and tracking things. And number two, shop smart. There's a whole lot of different ways to do that. And number three, when you are shopping, make sure you start and your budgeting, start with your needs versus your wants. And then get something on the side, get a side gig going so you can increase that top line too.
Absolutely. Multiple streams of income are always the best way to go. And take a hard look at what you're spending. And do you really need to be spending as much? Most times you can find a better deal getting the exact same thing or cutting services that you don't actually use. So pay attention to what you're spending, pay attention to what you're bringing in. If you live within your means, you can save more, invest more, and that's how people retire better. So remember, you always have to have that cushion. But if you just keep spending, again, if you're spending to look rich, you're going to end up poor. If you spend like a pauper, you'll end up rich. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us at the iTunes Store, the Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, iHeartRadio app, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. See you then.